Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. We're going to give it just a couple of minutes for everybody to trickle in, and then we'll get started. All right. Looks like the pace of people joining has slowed a little bit, so we'll go ahead and begin. A few quick housekeeping items. Can I get somebody to confirm they can hear me all right and see my screen? Great. Thanks for confirming that. As we go through this, we're going to set aside a few minutes at the end for Q&A. We're not going to interrupt the conversation as we go through it, though. So please be sure and go ahead and drop your questions as you have them in the Zoom side panel so we can make sure that we get to all of those and you don't forget what your question was. We are also recording today's webinar. We're going to email out to you tomorrow with a link to the recap page. It will have both the recording as well as the deck embedded on it. You can also reply to that email if you have any additional questions for myself or Martin. Happy to answer any and all of those that you might have. We'll also be sharing with you an exciting resource that Martin has provided as a thank you for everybody that registered and joined today. So we'll have that as part of the follow-up as well. All right, I think that's all our housekeeping items. So let's get started. Thanks for joining us today. You're here with Sales Intel and the Outbound Sales Guy. We're presenting on how to book qualified sales meetings outside your LinkedIn network. Whoops. Let's go back. So my name is Jason Hubbard. I'm Vice President of Partnerships and Alliances, and really excited to have a longtime friend and partner of ours, Martin MacArthur here, the Outbound Sales Guy. Martin, welcome, man.
Thanks, Jason. It's exciting to be here. I've been looking forward to this for a few weeks now, and yeah, we've had a good partnership going so far in terms of outbound. So really excited to keep that going.
Yeah, love having somebody with your expertise and know-how on with us. So excited to have this. All right, so quick agenda today. Really just four primary things we're going to cover. We're going to keep this light as far as what we're presenting on as far as the deck and stuff like that. Martin and I want to try and keep this as conversational as possible. Also, like I said, great opportunity for you guys to start dropping in questions and stuff like that. We'll make sure that we have plenty of time to respond to those as we go through it. So we're going to start off with how do you stand out from the noise with a unique headline? Next up, we'll talk about how to perform granular searches to be able to build your ideal ICP, your ideal customer profile. So you know you're targeting the exact right proper fit companies. Next up, extending that down to the individual persona level. How do you properly search for the right profiles to be able to target? And then the last step is, of course, you've done all of this really, really well. You've identified the companies, you've identified the people that you need to be targeting. So now you actually have to reach out to them. So we're going to talk about some best practices around how to build cadences for outreach to those companies and to those personas, those decision makers that you've identified through your process. So first up, Martin, we're going to talk a little bit about unique headlines for your outreach. So tell us a little bit about what you recommend or some of the best practices as far as structuring unique headlines to really stand out.
Yeah, that's a great one to kick off with, because so when I think about your LinkedIn profile, I think of it as a mini website, and that can be a whole different topic and go down a rabbit hole with that. But when you're thinking about building your headline, you got to remember that it's basically the first thing, along with your picture, that a prospect is going to come across when they search for you. And if you just have a generic standard headline, for example, sales development rep or SDR or quota crushing SDR, something along that line, like that doesn't really get a prospect excited. It doesn't create any kind of curiosity, interest in for that person to take 2 minutes out of their time to click your profile and really dig into, what do you do? How can you help me? So I guess it was back last November. I changed my headline. I always kind of had something a little unique, right? Nothing too creative or curious. But in November, I changed it to kind of amplify my personal brand, and I changed it, as a lot of people who see me on LinkedIn probably noticed, to the outbound sales guy. So what that did, it created a lot of curiosity, right? Because people are like, okay, so you're the outbound sales guy. What do you do? Especially for those who aren't familiar with outbound sales. So it was right there, smack dab in the middle for someone to see. Then they kind of get an idea before they even click into my profile. Okay, so you do something with outbound, you do something with sales. Cool. And then also, you're setting yourself up to be on the first page of the LinkedIn search pages, right? So kind of going back to that theme of LinkedIn being your own mini website, everyone, when you're thinking about a company, they want to be on the first page of Google. So you should be thinking your LinkedIn profile along the same line. You want it to be on the first page of the profiles that people come across, so that you don't get lost in the plethora of other individuals that have just the generic title.
That's great. That's great. So there's a few examples here. Obviously, we're going to start off with yours, and right there, first front and center, talking about outbound sales guy. But one of the other ones that you shared with us is Sean Cease. What was it about his that you really liked?
Yeah, just read me Sean's headline. I'm obviously connected with him, but I always forget what his actual headline is.
Yeah, he's saying, I hate trying to get prospects on the phone, so I figured out how to eliminate the exorbitant amount of time between calls and now have 20 to 30 conversations a day.
Exactly. So right there, to me, if I'm a CRO, a head of sales development, even a CEO focused on outbound, what's one of my main biggest headaches is picking up the phone or having reps pick up the phone and contact prospects. So if I came across Sean's profile and I had no idea who he was, what he did, that profile to me, okay, well, how are you doing this? What's your secret sauce? Like what's making you be able to eliminate that headache for me?
Yep. Yeah, I mean, everybody that's doing outbound side, that's their ultimate goal, is to increase the number and the quality of the conversations that they're having. So yeah, next up, Justin Michael. I know Justin well. Great to see him up on here. His is saying the B2B sales revolution is here. Join the sales orgs. Sales technologist, futurist, author.
Yeah, again, so if I had no idea who Justin is, to me that's is this a new technology that you've created? Is it a new platform, community? What is it? So for me, that has an inquisitive nature. I would want to reach out to Justin, send him an invite, send him a message, and say, hey, what's this sales board all about?
Yeah, and of course he's also added to it with his profile picture, which is him as sort of a Terminator type guy with the metal showing through. So it grabs you with the image, and then as you read, you see how it all ties together. And so the last one you had shared with me is Richard Smith. He's talking about frustrated sales calls don't close, too much mystery in your sales pipeline. Read this profile.
Yeah, again, so I always think of it from my persona, my ideal customer. So those are folks that are either performing some type of calling themselves, or they have a team, and the challenge for them is more conversations, more pipeline, more revenue, and the bottlenecks around that. So to me, I'd want to know, okay, how are you eliminating those headaches for me or for my team? And again, wanting to know more about, is it a platform? Is it a community? Because communities are popping up now. Is it a book? Like what is it?
Yeah, I think the key to all of these is one, they're speaking to their audience, and two, they're putting something out there that's gonna drive interest or raise questions that are gonna increase likelihood somebody's gonna reach out to them.
Correct.
All right. So next up,
then as you mentioned, they also have the profile picture, right, to kind of support, make it look a little more professional and force you to kind of click in there and do a little bit of research, which we'll touch on further down the line.
Yep. So next up, we're going to talk a little bit about how to define your ICP. Obviously, with me on the data side here at Sales Intel, is something we live and breathe every day. And that's one of the primary uses that people have for a data partner like ours is being able to apply firmographics, which are things like company size, geographic location, number of employees, stuff like that, industry vertical that they're part of. Technographics refers to what their technology footprint is, what tech stack they have employed. Company intel, have they been in the news recently? Have they raised around, stuff like that? And then buying intent is through people like our partner Bombora, who actually looks at how people are engaging with content across the web, and being able to try and help identify. One of the great stats that I learned as I started digging into intent is they claim a 3 to 4x increase in pipeline and marketing ROI. Then begs the question, how do you get there? How do you see that huge of an increase? And the end result is, no matter how good of a job you do, I mean, if you absolutely nail building your ICP, know exactly what your firmographic filters are, what your company looks like, stuff like that. Even if you've nailed all of that, only about 10 to 15% of that ICP is actively engaged in a evaluation or buying process at any given time. And so what intent does is helps you to narrow in on that 10 to 15% that you really need to be focusing on and engaging with. What about you, Martin? What are some of your best tips or tricks or strategies whenever it comes to building your ICP?
When I'm looking at building out, whether it's for us internally here at the Outbound Sales Guy, or it's for one of our clients, it's really tying into those factors that you mentioned, right? But if we're looking at LinkedIn, I prefer to start there on LinkedIn, just simply because, especially over the last few months with the current climate and people unfortunately losing their jobs, being let go, laid off, whatever the case might be. A lot of people are either starting new ventures, whether that's as a new CEO, new founder, etc., or they're joining a new organization. And I just find that people tend to they'll update their profile on LinkedIn before any other vendor like Sales Intel is able to grab that information, just because of the what's the first thing people tend to gravitate towards, right? Is their social profile. So I like to start there and then enrich it with the partnership that we formed with Sales Intel. But I like to really try and narrow in on one specific filter at a time if possible, because I find what that does is it just kind of breaks it up into manageable chunks, right? So for example, if we're working with a client and they're looking at targeting information security officers, for example. So I'll start with that as the persona. Then I'll filter it right down as narrowly as possible into a specific vertical. So like if the client says, okay, we want to target folks in banking, in legal, in healthcare, I'll focus on one specific industry at a time, because there's so many folks that fall into those categories that if you just go and type in IT security officer banking, for example, you're going to get probably like 1,000, maybe 2,000 people. So that requires a lot of research. Then you've got to go through and make sure that you're actually getting the right people. So I find if you can really narrow in on the parameter, that's going to help you filter out any waste.
Yeah, I think a great thing to remind people of here is it's not a one and done process whenever you're building your ideal customer profile. I mean, you need to look at your data, you need to look at your successes, you need to look at commonalities across those wins and similar on your losses, where you really missed the mark, and figure out what you can take back and apply to your model. And so you're constantly revising and getting more sophisticated with the model, both to help hone in on it, but also keep in mind it's always a moving target. You as a company and an offering are constantly changing, as well as the marketplace itself. So this needs to be a constant feedback loop and process. We go through and revise ours and completely go back and retool our entire ICP every quarter. Here's at Sales Intel, and again, the product changes, the marketplace changes, the customer needs change, all of that stuff, as well as you've got more data, you've got more stuff to go off of over time. And so if you're doing that and doing that properly, then you're constantly improving upon and optimizing that.
There's two things you touched on there, Jason, that I think the audience should, if they don't take anything else away, take away from this webinar, is that because as an individual contributor at various companies, I came across this a lot. And at previous outbound agencies that I was a part of before launching my own, it's a common challenge is that you'll have a CRM full of data, and that data hasn't been worked in maybe 6 or 8 or 12 months. And then you bring in, for example, maybe a new SDR or new account executive, whatever, and you're like, well, we got tons of data in the CRM. Well, you should be, like, to your point, you should be recycling it and refreshing that data, cleansing it every at least 3 to 4 months, because priorities change, people change. There's so many factors in it, and it is a moving target. To that point as well, document what was like your success in your first search, because when you go and search again, that may have changed. Right? Could have been that an algorithm's changed, a technology's changed. So document what worked well, what's not working well, so that you can then, okay, you can start to A/B test it.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. All right, cool. So that's some tips around how to refine and identify the customers, the accounts that you want to target. Let's shift focus to trying to identify the profiles that you really need to hone in on, focus. I listed out here a handful of my favorite search filters that are some of the more advanced ones that are available in LinkedIn Navigator if you're a paid Navigator user. A lot of people aren't aware of these, but it can be really, really effective filters and strategies to use. So some of these are ones that you've already mentioned, Martin. Leads with recent job changes. If somebody's moved to a new company, then oftentimes that can be a great foot in the door, especially if they move from an existing customer or client. Then that can be a really, really effective way to try and get your foot in the door at that new company. You can, there's a filter for excluding connected leads so that you're only looking at or focusing on net new that you've not reached out to yet. Leads following your company. So especially if you're generating like a lot of content, webinars, white papers, blog posts, stuff like that, and sharing it on LinkedIn, then hopefully that's leading over time to building an audience around your company and the content you're creating. And that's obviously a really powerful audience to go try and mine. Leads mentioned in the news, so whether that person or that company has been mentioned in the news, obviously that's one is a great way to have some intel on what's going on there, but also a great way to be able to show like, hey, I've done my due diligence, I've researched you, I know what's going on there, and you've got a soft way to get a conversation going and get it warmed up. Leads with recent LinkedIn activity. So I'll be the first one to admit, I'm not your best person to target on LinkedIn. I am not as engaged on LinkedIn as I probably should be. You're much more effective reaching out to me via email than you are on LinkedIn. But it's a great filter to be able to identify those that are engaged on LinkedIn and or identify those that you may want to reach out using other channels. And the last one, this one should be pretty self-explanatory, but leads with shared experiences and commonalities. But what are some of your favorite strategies for researching and identifying the highest priority or best fit profiles?
So the thing that really I find is surprising is the amount of people that I'll have a conversation with, either in the messaging on LinkedIn or on a Zoom call, whatever the case might be. It's quite honestly astounding that people don't bother to read your about section. And there's valuable information in your about section. So I'll get on a call with somebody or I'll get in a message with somebody and they have zero clue that I'm totally blind because they haven't taken the less than, probably like 60 seconds to read my about section where it's front and center. So now they've annoyed me right from the get-go, and like it potentially could, if it's a sales conversation and they're a vendor trying to get my business, and you haven't taken the time to tailor the pitch to accommodate my situation, then you've lost business, and I'm just astounded by that. So thinking along those lines, the amount of people that are reaching out to prospects on LinkedIn that don't take the time to read someone's profile, like you don't have to go through every activity that or every article they've posted, every post they've created, because that will, like, you're just wasting so much valuable time. But read their about section. Take the 60 seconds or even 30 seconds to read their about section and read their recent experience, because you can tell. Like when I view a person's profile, I read their headline, I read their about section, and I read their experience section, and I do that Now, mind you, I'm using a screen reader, so it reads a lot faster than probably some people. But I'm able to gather that information in less than 2 minutes. So I can decide, is this somebody I want to reach out to or not? And so I think that's vitally important for people to do. The other thing is, I've documented this before on a separate post on LinkedIn. I'm a huge fan of using Google alerts. So I'll create keywords on Google in the Google News alerts. And every morning over coffee, I'll go through my email and skim each alert. And in there, I'll pick up an article that, whether it's a company that's just recently received some funding, has hired a new revenue leader, has acquired a new company, is looking to target a new market, etc. And then from there, I'll go and search that person on LinkedIn. And to Jason's point, just soften up the conversation a bit by demonstrating I actually took some time and I'm not just reaching out to everybody and anyone on LinkedIn.
Yeah, that corresponds pretty closely what I've been telling people about. The biggest thing that I've seen change since COVID hit is not really what best practices are or what people need to be doing, but it's that it's a whole lot less forgiving if you're not actually doing those things. So we really should be doing all the stuff that we've been reading about, being taught and learning that we should do for a really long time. It's just that it's a whole lot less forgiving if you're not actually following those best practices. And one thing quick to note here before we go on to our final part, there's free tools out there like WebDriver, which is our free Chrome extension, that allow you to be able to extend your prospecting outside of LinkedIn to be able to pull additional contact information like email addresses, phone numbers, stuff like that. Because if you add, research will show if you add 2 additional channels to your outreach, you get 4x time of engagement and response rates off of that. So always good to be able to supplement what you're doing on LinkedIn and prospecting there with additional channels for outreach.
Because like you said, Jason, some people just aren't. They have a LinkedIn profile, they're using LinkedIn, but they're not active, or it's not the best way to engage with them because of whatever their priorities are. Maybe just because of their scheduling and bandwidth, they don't have time to be on LinkedIn every hour of the day.
So we're running a little short on time here. We got one last piece to cover. I'm going to let you lead with this one, Martin. But give us some tips on creating cadences that are going to connect. So we've done all of this hard work of identifying the companies and the people that we want to target. We've even identified some stuff like where they've been in the news or something like that, where we can use that to get a conversation going. But how do you build effective cadences?
Great topic there. So I execute, and it's a part of our mix here at the Outbound Sales Guy. We execute a 4 to 5 touch, depending on receptiveness, a 4 to 5 touch cadence, starting with a personalized invite. And in that invite, it includes is providing a little bit of context as to why I'm reaching out, what the problem is that we're solving, and how we can do it, all within those 300 character count on the invite. Don't just hit the invite button and let the templated messaging on LinkedIn go out. Take a little time and send that personalized invite, because it just provides more context, and it'll help you increase your connection rate. The next thing, once you've received a invite, don't just automatically go and pitch. Just leave it for a day, 2 days, even 3 if you're really busy, and then go back and send that person a voice message. Something along the lines of just, thanks for connecting with me. If you're open to it, love to learn more about X, Y, and Z and how we might be able to support you with this. Just don't be aggressive. Just, really, really soft. Then after that, if you have any type of a value add, throw that in there. If you haven't been successful in booking a call after that voice message, you can hit the person up a few days later and send them a some sort of a digital asset. Whether it's a recording to a webinar like this, or whatever that case might be. Then again, if there's no response, a few days later, send them an open-ended question around the problem that you think they might be having, and how just, again, open-ended, nothing too aggressive. And then the last touch is a short video message, just basically, along the lines of, if this is something you want to discuss down the road, happy to. Otherwise, I'm excited to follow your content and engage with you on LinkedIn. So it's you're being persistent, you're following up with them, but you're not just jamming them with a hard pitch right after they accept, and either putting your web your 3,000 word essay in front of them that a lot of people do, or putting your calendar in there. It'd be like, just here's my calendar.
Awesome. And then worth asking, I'm assuming that the 5-touch cadence you're talking about here is restricted just to LinkedIn. And so if you add additional channels to that, then there's going to be more touches than those 5.
Yeah, when we execute an outbound cadence here at the Outbound Sales Guy, it's over 30 days, and it's using LinkedIn, phone, email, and SMS messaging. So and video. So there's we're not just hitting on one specific channel. It is, we start with LinkedIn, and then we filter from LinkedIn to the phone, to email, to video, so on, so on.
Awesome. So yeah, like I promised at the beginning, when we send the follow-up to this, we had some questions come through about getting a recording. We will send everybody a link tomorrow in an email with the recap page that will have the recording as well as the deck. We'll also be sharing, Martin's been kind enough to give you guys the LinkedIn playbook. So incredibly valuable resource. We'll get that out to you. We're a couple of minutes past, but I can hang around for a little bit.
I have some time. I'm okay to stick around too, Jeff.
Cool. So if anybody has any questions for me or Martin, we can hang around here for a few minutes. If not, we can wrap this up. So I'll give you guys a minute or two to pop any questions you have in the Zoom side panel. Otherwise, we'll go and wrap this up here. All right, I don't see anybody with anything chiming in. So Martin, we'll go ahead and wrap this one up, man. Thank you so much. It's been awesome having you on here.
Really appreciate it, and I think there's a lot of value here, and happy to throw that playbook in. Hope that it's valuable for as many people as it has been for us.
Cool. We had one question asking. Somebody that's new to LinkedIn prospecting, where should they start? I assume they should start with your playbook, right?
Yeah, start with that. There's some, the biggest thing is don't be overwhelmed with the cadence or with the amount of steps. Just start small. So maybe if you're really new to LinkedIn, just start with like reaching out to maybe 10 people. And then build it from there. Gain more confidence, and get into a rhythm.
Yep. And then we have one more asking about use of automation. The biggest thing I use automation for with Cadence is in particular that mix of channels. So when you're trying to juggle, multi-touch, multi-channel outreach campaigns to keep straight where you are in that process, Is an email up next? Is a phone call up next? Is a LinkedIn touch up next? But what are your feelings on automation there?
So I'm not a fan of the. I think the last 6 months or so, there's been a lot of LinkedIn automation tools that have come out. I'm not a fan of those because I think it takes away the authenticity of your voice in your profile that you've and brand that you've created so much time and energy creating. The other thing is, we kind of do the same thing as you're just mentioning, Jason. So we'll create our initial LinkedIn touch point in our sales engagement platform, but we're not using any automation for LinkedIn other than, okay, next step, next step, next step. So when you're executing the cadence that's referenced in the playbook, it's all manual. There's platforms out there that can do it for you. I personally, I don't want to use them myself, but that's a personal choice.
Yeah, I think you and I are on the same page there. You use the tools to help you keep track of where they are in the process, but it's primarily a task manager more than actually automating the messaging and the outreach.
Correct. Yep.
Cool. All right. So, yeah, sorry, we got one more. Rev drivers and ship personal emails rather than professional emails. Is it okay to contact people directly, personal email sales outreach? That's going to be a mixed bag. A lot of that's going to depend on who you're reaching out to, what type of industry they're in, as far as reaching out to them on personal email or not. And then we have one more. As far as any recommendations as far as doing your own outreach on LinkedIn versus engaging with an outsourced firm, Martin?
So I guess it depends on the bandwidth within your day. So the folks that we partner with, they're trying to run their business, or they're trying to they're revenue leaders, so they're focused on meetings and internal meetings, trainings, coaching, and all that good stuff. Revenue leaders are focused on, so they don't have time to sit in LinkedIn, build a cadence, execute that cadence, or work with their reps to do. So that's, I would say, the benefit. But if you have availability in your day, yeah, there's no harm in doing it yourself.
Yeah, I think that's the same for pretty much everybody. If you've got the bandwidth and the expertise, then do it in-house. If not, then obviously that's a great opportunity to find somebody third party to help you out with it. And doing one does not mean that you can't do the other at the same time, or leverage outsourcing it to kind of get you kickstarted and get you going, and then work to move it in-house.
Yeah, like a lot of the teams we partner with, we're working with them to execute a go-to-market strategy. After that engagement, it's up to them if they want to keep us on. Obviously, that's great for us, and for them too, right? But we're more than happy to work with that client to transition very smoothly and seamlessly, so that they have everything internally and they're ready to scale out that team. Because after a certain point, it makes sense to bring it internally, right? But if you're a new company, infant company, and you're trying to manage 30,000 different things in a day, pipeline is one thing that you can't ignore.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we're going to go and wrap this one up then. Martin, again, thank you so much, man, for joining us. It's been fantastic.
I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.